We were talking about eggs before in the green room, and sometimes for my kids it's breakfast tacos, which are just like dinner tacos, but they think they're breakfast tacos, and that's all that matters, really.
And if you're listening to this, Brent's kids, they're breakfast tacos. They are breakfast tacos for
Yes, indeed. Well, welcome everybody to this episode of Small Talk Window, where the guest and host have a small window of time to dispense with this small talk as quickly as possible and settle into a meaningful conversation around the world of work. And today my guest is Ben Mones, who is CEO of Fama. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you, Brent, for having me. Appreciate it and looking forward to today's conversation in a small window of time.
Wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to today's conversation too, because we're going to be talking about risk mitigation and hiring, which I know is near and dear to Fama's heart and yours. But first, what gets you up in the morning, gets you fired up around the world of work?
Yeah, sure. My perspective is really that when you're spending so much time at work, you're spending so much of your waking hours, so much of yourself being dispensed with, right? So much of yourself is forming, developing relationships you're creating, business that you're doing, projects that you're running, art you're making, whatever it might be. So much of our life is spent at work. And, from my perspective, what gets me up in the morning is knowing that Fama is a tool that helps create spaces at work where people feel that sense of belonging or people feel that sense of connection where, yeah, we can identify people that act threatening or harassing or intolerant towards one another. And those are the sorts of things at work that make you, not want to be there, an unpleasant place to be. And if we really are, not forced per se, but, we have to work to keep food on the table, keep our families going and making eggs for our kids, like we were talking about earlier. So in any event, what gets me going is knowing that Fama is a tool and a technology that helps create work as a place that people want to be, where they feel that sense of belonging and connection for thousands of companies in 30 different countries. So that's what gets me going.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were talking about eggs before in the green room, and sometimes for my kids it's breakfast tacos, which are just like dinner tacos, but they think they're breakfast tacos, and that's all that matters, really.
And if you're listening to this, Brent's kids, they're breakfast tacos. They are breakfast tacos for
Yes, indeed.
yeah.
I think you get into something right there. It's a nice segue into the topic today. When we create an employer culture, we want our workforce to feel like it's a safe place. It's a safe place to get work done and be as productive as possible and as excited about it as possible. And when you have the right people there, good people, that makes that aspiration, that objective, that much easier to create that environment. One of the things that we're thinking of calling this episode end-to-end risk mitigation and hiring. That's the boring part. But the not boring part of the title is it isn't just about pre-hire anymore, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
Why don't we start here? There's been we hear the word a lot, democratization, but I love the word. And there has been a democratization of technology for in the pre-hire process. It used to be that all the technology was really for the talent acquisition professionals, right? The recruiters or whoever else inside the organization to do a better job at finding people or maybe sift through job applications in a somewhat more efficient way, more effective way. But recently, we've seen a lot more in the way of technology that's really geared toward the job seeker. There's been a lot of democratization there with the advent of we weren't going to get through a podcast episode without talking about AI, right?
There it is. There's on my bingo card now. Yep, right.
Get it out of the way early.
Getting a ton of tech for sure. Yep.
Yeah. You have lazy apply and these sorts of things where basically it's already sort of an employer's market right now. There's a lot of folks looking for jobs, and even without this new sort of situation, there would already be a larger influx of inundation of job applications. But now it's exacerbated, amplified by these tools that job seekers have. And so hiring organizations, they have, from what I understand, and maybe you could speak to this, they have a much greater challenge now to help ensure that the folks that they're bringing on board are indeed um, not bad hires. Because
Right.
I think the way I've heard it put is, you don't want to have a bad hire and you really don't want to have a really, really bad hire. Because a lot of this technology, not just pre-hire technology, but just democratization of technology in general for individuals, it could even be an issue after they leave the company, possibly because of termination, because they weren't vetted properly in the beginning. What are your thoughts around all this?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think we have, without a doubt, a lot of technology for candidates, for consumers more generally, right? And the sense that you have to, as a job seeker, use every tool at your disposal to, be able to go out and not just find the job, but make your own way in the world, right? And so
Mhm.
I guess I would start by saying that not only do I support those types of technologies, but I welcome them. In a free labor market, the job seeker and the employer should have the exact same shot, the exact same access to technology for them to, achieve their respective goals. But what it does mean is that now, and there could be a whole separate podcast on this idea of technology talking to technology, but the idea of
Mhm.
quality becomes a lot harder to discern, right?
Right.
When we think about people as, oh, are they a reflection of their words on the resume as it relates to the words in the job description? We
Mhm.
think about people as it relates to the text that they use in responding to a conversational ATS that asks them why they're interested in the particular role, right?
Mhm.
So hiring is so much more than that, right? Hiring is so much more than the text that someone brings to the table. And by text, again, I don't mean to like try to reduce it down to its bare bones, but at the end of the day, that's what a lot of this artificial intelligence is doing. It might be some video interviewing that's doing transcriptions, but it's really saying, how is this person presenting themselves in text compared to our own textual understanding of what the requirements are? Now, that's a big piece of it. And there's a lot of technology out there that does that sort of stuff really well. Again, text to text comparison. But humans are so much more than that, right? They're the how do we, you know, handle the difficult scenario when it is a gray area decision where we're feeding off the information stream in real time and we have to make a call based on incomplete information. How is this person going to perform? If I'm in customer service and I have a moment where someone is really upset about something that happened with the product that I sell, they have a customer issue. How is that customer service representative going to be diplomatic, resolve conflict, right? It's so much more than what you say, but how you say it, how you present it, where you listen, where you don't, your body language, all that, right? And so I think that's the area that, employers are now seeing, okay, well, we can figure out who somebody is in text and, candidates who are seeking jobs can say we can actually get a leg up on that piece, right? But it still leaves employers with this question of, where are the quality candidates? How do I get, again, back to the way I've always done things, an evaluation on someone's behavior? How are they going to act around fellow employees when they join? Are they going to treat them fairly, right? Are they going to treat them the same way no matter what they look like, kind of like you were saying? Or, two, how are they going to treat our customers in the same example I was sharing, right? And so we know our data suggests that, companies that, have strong cultures outperform those that don't. Productivity actually increases in environments that, are free from toxicity. There's a direct relationship. It's really interesting Harvard study that came out with Cornerstone on Demand. They had a bunch of before, Cornerstone merged and became Cornerstone is today. When CSOD was just like an e-learning company, they had so much data about people and data about performance and surveys, et cetera, on things related to the workforce and health within the workforce that people who are in toxic work environments are 40% more likely to leave, right? So
Mhm.
employers know that. And for years, they've been trying to answer that question again. How's somebody going to act when they join around fellow employees? How are they going to act around the customers that they engage with, right? And so I think what you're seeing now is as this question of, does the person have the experience? Do they have the words on their resume? Do they type the answers to the question the right way? It exposes almost this other quality question of like, who's this person? Who is this human? What are the intangibles, right? And I would argue that employers forever have cared about this, right? Employers have
Yeah.
always asked the questions in the job interview. I remember when I was applying to jobs, and is Kinko's still a company, by the way? I was at that.
I think they finally went away, but I remember even just a few short years ago seeing one.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. But you
yeah,
remember, like, when you were applying to a job, we used to go to Kinko's and print it out, like, our resume on resume paper. It was, like, thicker, and we would get the black folder, and we would go in. Like, that was a sign of demonstrating to an employer preparedness, attention to detail, recognition of the moment, etc. You know, the handshake, the eye contact, all that.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
Employers are still looking at ways that they can answer those sorts of questions about a person's character, about their behavior. And I think that's where you're starting to see the technology turn to, is like, okay, this, like, I don't want to again make it seem like it's a small part of the TA tech universe, but this is going to quickly become a very mature space. This, like, conversational ATS, candidate tech, lazy job, like you said, that's going to become a mature and commoditized space very, very quickly. Probably some would argue it's already that way right now. I wouldn't, but I think we're living through a phase where this technology is very quickly going to be like, oh, okay, this is just a part of how we do work now, leaving employers with these bigger questions.
yeah, absolutely. And that, by the way, thank you for that wonderful sort of, overview of our circumstances right now. I mean, you put very well, and I guess it begs the question, and I'm going to set this up just a little bit. We also have some, sort of traditional conventional approaches to figuring out whether somebody is, who they say they are,
Yeah, sure.
whether they are an up and up individual, ethical, these sorts of things. All of those were designed for this previous reality that no longer exists. Very few people. This actually occurred to me the other day. I kind of knew it was in the background, but all of a sudden it just kind of like came to me. Yeah. Nobody is printing out a resume anymore on a watermarked, bone white, resume stock. It's not happening anymore. And in a way, that's great, because it was always kind of it's kind of a pain to go over to Kinko's or whatever it was. Office Max, another one that no longer exists, and do that. It was kind of tough. But you're right. You brought up something really interesting. In that old calculus, you would go in and you would look them in the eye, and they would see that you had a resume on appropriate paper, and you were well presented, and all these kinds of things. And that was a very useful, probably accurate, or at least partially accurate, glimpse into your character. And we don't have that same sort of IRL or, old school in-person, face-to-face situation anymore. And so it's a lot easier for folks, in a way, it's a lot easier for folks to sort of, I guess you would say, fake that, for lack of a better word, or put their best foot forward. It's easier to put your best foot forward in an online environment than in an offline environment. But I would also say that it might be, in a way, tougher for folks to present themselves in that way in the online environment, because if you're Gen X or older millennials, you joined Facebook about 15 years ago. You're still there. I'm a Gen X myself, and I do go into Facebook and I post photos of my kids and funny jokes and this sort of stuff. And everybody, a lot of folks. So I guess it's this big setup here. And what is the solution now? I know we have behavioral intelligence capabilities that we didn't used to. We
Right.
have ways of sort of I don't know if this is the word we want to use, but to investigate folks online, just to kind of explore, unearth cues or reliable cues as to their their behavior and their character. Um, can you get into that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, sure. And it's a great question, and I'll share one example too about the old way. And I
Mm.
remember I had a job early on in my career where the guy I worked for used to do this thing where when he was late stage, and this was in-person interviews, so late stage interviews, it was an office you had to drive to. I was living like outside of New York City on Long Island, and uh, his thing was that when the interview was scheduled, let's say it was a 2 p.m. interview, you would get a call from him as a candidate at 10 a.m. that said, and it was always something, it was funny. This guy always did something different. It was like, hey, I know this is kind of a strange request, Brent, but like, I gotta leave the office and go right, home, or I got some meetings keeping me late, and my wife asked me to pick up a gallon of milk. My wife asked me to do this, or I need to go. I forgot to go at the auto parts store, which is like right. And he would always pick something that wasn't too far away. Like I
Yeah.
need. I remember there was one time where he said something like, I need like paper plates for a barbecue I'm having this weekend. I don't have time to go. Right? Can you pick them up
Yeah.
for me? And so what he would do was he would ask this question, and it was like a toss up, 50-50. The candidates would be like, no, or they would do it. And his thing for him, this guy who ran a small business, was like, I want to know if somebody is okay with last minute changes. I
Yeah.
want to know if somebody is okay with putting the company first, right? So it's this kind of like character check that I think there are employers all over the globe that have their own version of the resume or the milk or whatever it is that, maybe they ask them to bring breakfast tacos or something like that. But in any event, like that way is gone. Like
Mm.
you said, like even if you're a full-time in the office, you've hit RTO, everyone's adopting it, like you still want to find the candidates that, you'd have to move out, right? The folks like the talent pool has expanded to include everyone everywhere at this point for
Mm.
all employers, which is really exciting. So I think employers now are saying as the dynamic is changing, as the environment is changing, let me just say like simply as the workplace is changing, we need to find ways to answer those same questions
Mm.
in an updated 2025 modeled approach, right? And I think, as you mentioned, like, I count myself a older millennial, like I was that group who,
Mm.
grew up with a Facebook account I got in 2004 when I got a .edu email address for college, right? Like
Yeah.
that was when we got Facebook, and check it out. Like right now, this year, Gen Z and millennial makes up 50% of the workforce. In
Wow.
2030, that number is going to be 75%, which is
Yeah.
crazy to think about, right? I mean, it makes sense in like, boomers aging out of the workforce, Gen X, reaching the next phase of their career, and we've got like Gen Alpha or some other new generation.
I think it is that. Yeah.
Yeah, but in any event, like companies, I think, are adapting their screening technology and these questions or screening approaches to say, how do we adopt our toolkit to, screen our workforce in a way that reflects both the nature of the workplace where it is, but who's making up that workforce today? And to your point, like looking online, and not just things that are risky, like our bread and butter again is helping you get an approximate, intelligence on someone's behavior based on, how they, treat other people online, if they hate, troll people on the internet, or if they, act hateful towards the people because of what they look like those are things that we know they normalize that they could bring into your workforce. But there's also other cool stuff you can do, like looking at, big 5 traits that a person brings to
Mm.
the table based on their online language alone. So I think we're at the beginning of this, like, and it's hard for me as the founder and CEO. It's been 10 years since we started the company. So but we are very much at the beginning of this kind of recognition that, the future of talent technology is going to be quite different, and it's going to be a moving target. And I think, you're right. The coolest thing about what we're doing right now is like, dude, we're living through history on this stuff.
Yeah.
Like the game is changing every year right now for us. And that's, I think, what makes HR tech so exciting and drawing so much investment, and honestly has elevated the field of talent, HR, and people, to other types of professions in ways that maybe it wasn't 15 or 20 years ago. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I will just say that online screening and those big five traits, that definitely sounds like the way forward. And you're absolutely right. We're living through history right now, just like our great grandparents when they invented automobiles. They're getting rid of horses, and folks lived through the 1900s, the 20th century, wouldn't recognize 1999 if they just been transported from 1915. And I think, folks, it's just going to be the same sort of situation, and in the next 20 years even. And it is an exciting time to be alive.
Hey man, I couldn't agree more, and I would even compress the timeline to say that if you and I have the same conversation next year, we'll both be shocked at the level of technical change that's happened in this world in just that period. I mean, I'm seeing things right now, like stuff that's coming across my desk, our technology, other types of technology that are just like blowing me away. Like computers being controlled by AI and doing very complex tasks. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what happens.
Well,
But
we'll have to do an episode a year from
let's
now.
do it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Ben.
Cool. Thanks, Brent. Appreciate it.